It's the 14th of August, and we are in the Gin and Tonic Show. The way that it works is we first do some definitions, then we do the video of the week, the misconception of the week, the news, the topic, and the hadith of the week. Except today, because we have hadith as the topic, I'm going to put the hadith of the week a little bit earlier, just to get you in the right mood for things. So it's going to be even before the news. Now,
Abu Hurairah records.
What is it?
Sorry.
I heard this. Okay, now I am a human being. Okay, so if I go and introduce myself to somebody who says, well, what are you? I will say, I am a human being. I don't go there and say, I'm a human being without wings. The same way as I don't go as I'm a human being who is not a racist. I don't go there saying I'm a human being who does not play golf. I say I'm a human being. For some odd reason, though, theists want me to say I'm a human being without a God. I don't know why I should do that. I don't know why I should go and introduce myself as something that I am not.
Abu Hurairah records, I said to Allah's Apostle,
Ali, can you please shut up and let me talk?
I don't know why he started, really. But I stopped.
But I don't know if this is now, I wonder if this is now going to go through to the, to Vaughan.
It will.
Okay. So why I should introduce myself as something that I am not. Like I'm not a racist, I'm not an astrologist, I'm not a tennis player, I'm not a, I don't know what. I don't know why I should do that. But theists, where the human being plus a God is a theist, and the human being plus nothing, why should that be an atheist? Why can't the human being plus nothing be a human being? It's very difficult for me to understand that. And I don't understand why I need to label myself as something that I am not. But I do it anyway because I am an accommodating, nice person. And I want to talk about this because there's a lot of people on this planet. I don't think it's so many, but there are quite a few who still believe in all of this, who still believe that they need a God to get through the day. And if they do that, well, I'm not going to stop them. All I do is I appreciate and I expect people to tell the truth. If somebody comes to me and says, look, it's a good thing if you have a God, and I say, nah, not really, then they should leave me alone. Just like, you know, a gay person comes to me and says, listen, can I make a pass at you? And I will tell them, nah, not really. Then they leave me alone. So why can't a religious guy do this? Why can't they simply leave me alone? Why do Christians come to my door and tell me, it doesn't matter whether they're Mormons or Jehovah's or whatever, they come to my door and say, listen, you can't get through life without a God. And I tell them, yes, I can. And I can get through life much better than you can because you believe in this funny Bronze Age mythology where, you know, and that's stupid. And they, yeah, but you don't have any morality. I said, yes, I do. I'm a much more moral person of a much higher moral standard than you as a God believer, because you tell me that if there were no God, you would go out and rape and kill and murder and plunder and do all sorts of funny things. I don't need a God to stop me from doing that. So this is why we're talking about religion as a non-religious person, because people don't leave me alone. Muslims stand in the street and they tell me I need to read the Quran. And then if I tell them, well, the Quran is full of mistakes, they say I'm a hater. No, I'm not. I'm just somebody who likes honesty, and I like to be honest with those people who make these funny claims. And that's what I'm doing all the time. I mean, I had a debate this week with somebody who in the end was screaming at me that I am a hater, a liar, a filthy, dirty person, a hypocrite, and just because I asked him to pretty please define his God. He was unable to do so. All he said is, well, his name is Allah. And he thinks that this is a definition of his God. No, it's not. So anyway, so we have people like Tsotsas who lie and deceive, and there are Muslims who applaud him for this. So I see it as my moral obligation to go and say to people, watch it. Don't believe everything these people say, go and check. And that is it. So I am a non-believer who talks about Islam. And what is Islam? Well, Islam makes a claim, and that is that it's the last, the final, the biggest, the greatest, the prettiest, the everything. Well, It's not. Because everything is, there's nothing new in Islam. Everything was already there. I mean, it's not a, it makes all these funny claims. And then if you look at them, you'll find, no, not really. But what Islam does do is it claims that everybody needs to submit. They claim that their God done it, and because their God done it, their God knows best, and because their God knows best, I need to do what their God is telling me that I should do. But then the God doesn't tell me what I should do, but then it's a human telling me what I should be doing. And that's funny. That's very strange, because if I look at what it is, what Islam expects of me, I mean, it tells me what to wear, when to wear it, what to eat, when to eat it, all these funny things. It tells me whom I am supposed to kill, that I need to fight for this, and I need to do this, I need to do this, and it tells me something about justice, about finance, about commerce, about all these funny things, taking control of my entire life. I'm sorry, I don't like that, not without a good reason anyway. And then they come with this funny story that if I don't do that, I'm going to get punished because I go to hell. I mean, that's children. It's not for a grown-up in the 21st century. So if somebody next to me, and I'm a car mechanic, and somebody next to me is trying to sell somebody a dud for a car, I will speak up. And this is why I speak up here. And I say, listen, Muslims, don't come and talk shit. Don't tell people that this is the case and this is so scientific and this is this and this is. No, it is not. You do not have good reasons to believe what you believe, because you've never once told me. And then if you do have a reason, well, then come and talk about it. Let's see what the reasons are. Put it on the table. Let's go and examine it. But just making claims doesn't work. Okay, and the whole thing in Islam is based on texts. It's based on the Quran. And it's a vague and ambiguous text. And then you need to interpret it. I mean, I always challenge people, open a book, any page, put your finger on any sentence, read the sentence and tell me what it says. Now, there's large portions of the book which are completely nonsensical, which nobody can understand. Then if you read the sentence which does make some sense, you still need to interpret it. There's hardly anything in the Quran which you just say, okay, this is what it says, and this is what you need to do. There's hardly a single sentence that works like that. You always need to interpret this. And then because, like I said, God doesn't tell me, for example, how to pray or how many times to pray, what I should do, and all that. So I need now the interpretation and the rules made by humans, which are collected in the Sunnah. Not only decades, but centuries after they were supposedly, allegedly after they happened. And that is the point. And that is what we're trying to do here on the Gin and Tonic Show. We're trying to talk about these things and explain Islam and its contents. Now, the way that it works is that anybody can join, anybody can participate, and that would be the best. You can either just listen in and make some text comments, which is in live.godless.ch. So you just go to the browser and type in live.godless.ch, and you automatically get taken to Vaughan, which, if it works once in a while, you can hear the show live and make some comments. Or if you want to come and chat here, then you go and enter into the browser hangout.godless.ch, which takes you to the Hangout where you can talk and chat and make suggestions or correct or ask or whatever. If you want to see past episodes, just go to archive.godless.ch. Because I would actually appreciate it if Muslims came here. But for some odd reason, Muslims are too scared to do so. I don't know why. I mean, I don't bite, and I don't think anybody else here bites. And it would be nice to hear from a Muslim who's actually living this to explain what it is that he finds so fascinating about Islam and why it is that so many people have these misconceptions. Okay, there's somebody called Tom Leeds, who is Tom the Atheist On, and he is looking for former Muslims who are now non-Muslims to interview them. He had the masked Arab on, and that was a very interesting interview. And he's looking for more people. So if you want to get in there, I mean, all you need to do is look for masked Arab on YouTube, and you will find the video I'm talking about, and then you can find Tom. Because I only have at Tom the Atheist On his Twitter name. I forgot to look up his YouTube channel. But I think it's something with Atheist TV, and I can't remember the name now. Okay, but I'm sure anybody can find it. If somebody wants to, then they can just contact me and I'll find it for them. Now, The video of the week is not the Masked Arab. It was a fascinating video, I must admit. But what I've selected as video is Richard Dawkins. Now, Professor Dawkins wrote out this children's book for kids, okay, which is called The Magic of Reality, where in different chapters he takes different phenomena and explains them, and he shows what the myths used to be 1,000, 2,000 years ago, and what we know about these today. And it is such a brilliant, and it's such a beautifully made book, and the way that he talks about it and explains everything, that I can only recommend it to anybody, especially if you've got kids. If you want to teach them about reality, you want to teach them about what is going on, listen to Richard Dawkins talk about his book, and then see if you don't want to use something like this for your kids. Now, the misconception of the week is a bit of a, well, it should be called misrepresentation of the week, because it was a video by Hamza sources, where it was not from GDM this time, or LDM, London Dawah Movement, or the Global Dawah Movement, or it was from Mission Dawah. No, this was from IERA, or from their video channel. And it has Hamza asking, is this person loving or hateful? And it's like a social experiment. And he posted this video where he reads hadiths to people and then asks, is this a loving or a hateful man? And of course, we were talking about the hadiths, how you can, like you need to interpret them. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of hadiths. They're still being modified, because when they don't like one, they say, well, this one is not that authentic, so let's quickly delete it. I mean, I remember there was a hadith about Muhammad rubbing his penis between the thighs of a little girl. And this disappeared because it was too embarrassing. So, just like when Aisha says that she was 6 years old when she married the Prophet, who was 50, and then he was like 53 or 54 when they had sex for the first time, so that makes a 9. So if Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, this is embarrassing for many Muslims, so they try and change it, and they make it look as though she was 17 or 18 or something like this. So some hadiths are still being updated and modified today.
Yeah, but
and then you find, you can cherry pick. They go and contradict each other. They go and contradict the Quran. They do all sorts of things. So using the hadith, you can prove just about anything.
Aren't they trying just for the outsiders or for the non-Arab speaking people? Because I think and I see that they have no might over the original, so they can't just take some hadiths from the Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim collection. They are just telling people from outside that this hadith or that hadith is wrong, yes, and doesn't belong there. But I think they have a very bad standing if they are trying to do that in the original collection in Arabic. So just for the outsiders, I think it seems as if
now also for insiders, they still have these huge gatherings where they have all these so-called Islam scholars, and they then debate and they say, well, this is not this chain of narration is not that complete, and blah blah blah, and they're still taking out hadiths today. Or they're still bringing in new ones, which they say, actually, now we found that this person is trustworthy. And I'll get into that just a minute when I'll discuss the hadiths as such, and maybe then, because this, I think, is quite an interesting discussion. So what the rationalizer did now is he tweeted his own social experiment, and it's on Twitter, rationalizer status, and then blah, 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 blah. I posted 6 hadiths on what Muhammad was supposed to have said about women. And I didn't comment this. I just put the quote there and the reference. And he says they were all deleted immediately, and now comments are only published after being approved. And the funny thing is, the video has no comment section any longer. It's closed completely. So what Hamza is only allowing is his version of the truth. And that is it. So he tells people, this is a hadith, this is something, like like stupid. And then he says, was this a loving or a hateful man? And then people will, of course, say, oh, this is a loving man. Of course he was. Well, this is Prophet Muhammad. This is what Islam is about. But he only gives you the one side. And the other side, the traction Isa gave, it was deleted completely. So this is reality in Islam today, where apologists or Islamopists or whatever you want to call them, Islamic apologists, Islamogists or Islamopists or whatever, they are so selective and they are so dishonest. It's absolutely frightening. And I don't understand this. I don't understand how, I don't know how many hadiths, I think there's even 3 or 4 hadiths which all say the same thing, that Muhammad told his men how to properly rape female captives. And he says, no, don't pull out, don't do coitus interruptus, don't pull out, and because this might diminish the value of the woman because she's pregnant when you put her on the slave market, because Allah is going to protect you. Allah is not going to allow these women to get pregnant. So enjoy your orgasm and just rape the female captives as much as you want to, because only God will allow them to get pregnant. Now, these are hadiths. These are authentic hadiths from Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari. They are there. Now, what are you going to do? I mean, every time I mention them, people say, no, you fabricate them. And I say, well, go to sunnah.com and go here. Here it is, book, da-da-da, and I give them all the details, and they go there. And then they say, no, these cannot be true. Because for them, what cannot be true is not true. Paragraph 1, Muhammad is a good guy. Paragraph 2, if he's a bad guy, automatically apply paragraph 1. And that's end of discussion. And that is all that you can do. This is quite strange, quite weird. I don't know why people do that. And then they say, well, you are misrepresenting me. No, it's the other way around. I mean, Sources misrepresents Dr. Petrovich, and then he says, well, other people are misrepresenting me. No, he's the one doing that. Arrah. Anyway. All right, then let's go to the next item, which is terrorist tourism, which shows, again, you can't please everyone. Because Daesh told everyone that the US are to blame because they actually radicalize Muslims. And the UK too, of course. So questioning somebody at the border radicalizes them. And if you ask a Muslim some questions about violent acts, then they become violent. And, you know, if you ask them because because they killed Muslims in what they call Muslim lands. Now, a Muslim land, I don't quite understand what a Muslim land is, but I believe it's supposed to mean Iraq or Afghanistan or something like this, or maybe UAE, or I don't know, but it's pretty wishy-washy. I mean, they don't really call a Muslim land a land where Muslims were saved by the Americans and by the UK a couple of years ago in the Kosovo, for example. This they forget. They only go towards the Iraq scenario, and it's not Desert Storm either, where Iraq was chucked out of Kuwait. No, it's only the, you know, a little bit selective, the last one, where America pulled out, I don't know how many years ago, and violence is even worse than it was when they were there. So this is quite funny. But the Muslims are claiming that because the United Nations has sent people into Muslim lands, that justifies them killing other people in other countries. But now, the funny thing is they can't use that excuse anymore because the United Nations did not send anyone into Syria or Iraq. So what was happening now is that Daesh are sending their invoice to Europe and the US to punish them for not occupying Muslim lands or something. Because the US is already close to being a police state, so protecting Obama will be even more noticeable, I guess. Because Daesh is now going and saying, well, we are going to conquer your lands as well, because you used to be in our lands. Because they can't punish anybody, because I think everybody in Afghanistan left. So there's nobody occupying any country, but they make it look as though it is, so that they can go and kill people in America. So what they've done is somebody found a list of something like 1,400 targets in the US. And of course, target number one is Barack Hussein Obama, who apparently is a Muslim, but Muslims want to kill him first. Because there are no Americans in Muslim lands anymore. So this is quite strange. Okay, I don't know. You can't do anything. So because now the Americans are no longer in Syria or Iraq or whatever, now they are trying to establish terrorists who are traveling to other countries and then performing terrorist acts in those other countries. So if the Americans don't come to Syria, then the Syrians have to go to America. It's a funny logic. It's very strange logic.
But
So I don't understand
also don't
why they think they need to. I don't understand why they need to kill Americans at all cost. I don't know what it is with America, if it's only that Americans are sort of protecting Israel. And that's why they're a little bit afraid of attacking Israel, even though the last time they attacked Israel, they got a walloping from the Israelis only. I don't think there were any Americans involved.
Well,
Anyway, so
they
it's a
want
strange
to
thing.
take
But
revenge.
now you have tourism where they're
Stop.
trying to export terrorism to other countries just so that they can
Stop
terrorize them.
spamming.
And telling them what a wonderful religion Islam is, where everybody needs to
Stop
join because
spamming.
it's so peaceful, so quiet, and it's the
He's
only
not
way of
hearing
life.
me anymore.
And if you don't believe that, I'm going to kill you.
Stop spamming.
Now, let's go to a stunt double. This is bizarre, okay? I think, anyway. Now, this is not about James Bond or
Can I just bring something in?
Scientology Mission
Stop.
Impossible guy. But this is about the leader of Boko Haram. He was so scared he used doubles to protect himself. So I mean, he used to wear this army fatigue and then this funny mask, and then he was holding out the Quran and making speeches. So he had somebody stand there, dress up like him, but then he had to give the speeches. So that if somebody got killed, this guy was the fall guy. Like Sources goes now and makes Hussein the fall guy. He says, you guys are talking shit about Islam. Why don't you come and talk to us first? Come on, here, talk to Hussein. Now, Imran Hussein is incapable of even stitching together a normal coherent sentence. How can you do?
I'm hoping he sees it. Because I have.
Okay, so I don't understand why Sources would go and say, all right, go and debate Muslims, and then, oh shit, headphone.
I just wanted to ask something. Do you hear me? I mean, people.
Now I hear you. I'm sorry, I didn't see the light blinking because I'm looking on the right and I wasn't looking on the left because the headphones switch off.
There was two little things on the case of terrorist tourism. First,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
First, I think they want to take revenge anyway, mostly on the U.S. I think that's clear that they just need to take revenge. On whom I don't know, but Barack Obama seems to be a good target because also Barack Obama is and was a liar. He said he will take his first step will be in the president
Guantanamo Bay.
Will also that, but the first thing will be that he takes troops out of Afghanistan and Iraq, and the first thing
He did the opposite,
he's done was put more troops in. So there you have a good target for radicals and.
Actually, I'm also I used to believe the guy. I really thought he was going to make a change, and I think Barack Obama is the worst president the U.S. has ever had.
He is also he can't just he has charisma and he can speak better than Bush, but his ideology I think is even worse than Bush's. That's the first thing. They want to take revenge, and the second thing I don't understand is why you at the borders of, let's say, the UK or even in Germany, you have to ask radicals if they want to go out of Germany, what they are supposed to do in countries like Iraq and Syria. I mean, it's not nice, it's not good, it's not really fantastic if they want to be terrorists in these lands. But if they want to be, let them be there. So, I mean, is Germany or the UK or the US or Australia, etc., to say people, no, you can't go out of our nation to be a fighter in another nation you want to free? Because, I mean, if you look at history, if let's say in the UK in the 18th century, and they had say to US citizen or people who want to go to and fight for the US against the UK, I mean, you see the comparison, because the US also was founded on terrorism. Let's be clear about that. And they fought it and wanted to kill for their freedom. Let's say it this way. And I can't understand why today we also act like we are the police of everybody else. I mean, if they want to be stupid and kill other Muslims, other brothers and sisters in their faith, well, let them be. If they don't see any other ways to be stupid, yeah.
And this is why I think, for example, what happened in South Africa, what happened in Iran, was perfect. It showed that you don't need military intervention to do anything. Now, in the case of South Africa, it was stupid because they came and they said, well, you need to stop apartheid. But they never said to replace it with what. And this is why South Africa is suffering still. I mean, for a lot, it's always going downhill all the way. They have to switch off electricity now because they don't have enough electricity generators. So this was really, really, really short-sighted what they did in South Africa, but it was effective. It worked. And the same thing happened in Iran, where Iran is really suffering due to the sanctions. And this is what brought them to agree to actually do something. Where it's not happening is North Korea. They don't give a continental damn. They will just do whatever it is that they want to do. But there are alternatives. There are ways of doing that. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. We should not police another country. If another country wants to be stupid, well, then they should be stupid. I always, I enjoy that, for example, Germany is one of the very few countries where you can still drive as fast as you want to on the highway, theoretically anyway. Practically, it's a bit different, but theoretically you can. And this is something that I enjoy, and I think it's one of the very few countries, I think Isle of Wight, and there's some other places who have this, but it's very few. So there is something that you can only do in this country that you cannot do anywhere else. So, I mean, are the others now trying to go to Germany, say, listen, stop this? Sure. But they're saying, yeah, but now you're wasting our resources because suddenly Porsche and BMW and all the others will not be able to survive anymore. And this is then they're saying, okay, well, fuck you, when we're not changing our laws. And the same applies, and I believe that the same applies to any other country. I should not have to go to another country and tell them what to do, what to believe, and how to behave. So I agree with you 100%.
Just wanted to mention again, on one hand, the US mostly are acting like the police, and they go in other lands and fight. But if somebody else wants to fight on their own for another nation or establishing another nation, it's suddenly it's a bad thing. I just don't understand this point in any way. So.
And I mean, look at the US. I mean, as if they were capable of policing. I mean, their police are now in charge of life and death. Okay, if you come across a policeman in the US, I mean, the chances are you're going to fucking die. I mean, there's no. They shoot people for absolutely no reason. It's amazing that after you had the huge protests in Ferguson, that the police don't say, all right, let's take it easy. Let's first not use our guns, but use something else before we kill more people. They don't care. They kill more and more people.
Well,
there's more and more people now with cameras
no
who are recording the cops, and they're still killing.
No reason. I think no reason is wrong. I think the reason is you are black and I'm white, so therefore you die and I live.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, there is a
Well,
little
they
reason
call it
here.
killing or driving while black. This is the reason. Yeah. That's why they stop people and then kill them. I mean, it's amazing how many people get killed. I mean, but there's white guys. I saw a video of a guy. He's at a petrol station, and he's got one of these Ford F-5150s. You know, these high truck things, pickups. And the cop comes behind him, and he says, "Get your hands up in the air, give me your..." And the guy says, okay. And he goes into his truck to get out his driver's license. And the guy shoots him because he thinks, well, maybe he's not getting his driver's license like I told him to do, but maybe he's going for a gun, which I didn't tell him to do. So let me shoot him rather and be careful because I'm fearing for my life. And then we'll discuss this later. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy what is going on in the US with the cops. I mean, it's madness. And the most terrible thing, and this is the same thing what I'm telling Muslims, the good cops in the States don't take ownership of the bad cops. And this is the same thing what I always say about Muslims. If Muslims would take ownership of their religion, to take ownership of their ideology, we wouldn't be having all these problems, but they don't do that. So anyway, Germany has 2 speeds, East German and West. No, come on. No, the thing I hate about Germany most is that you have a theoretical unlimited speed limit. You have a recommended speed of 130. So, I mean, I enjoy fast speed. Okay, I must admit that. But now, the other day, I was coming down the highway and I was doing about 280 or something like this. And suddenly, somebody just changed lanes and he jumped in front of me. So what happened is I didn't have time to react. So I just went on the right, passed him on the right, and then went back and then slowed down and took a breather. I went to the cops and I said, this is what happened. And they said, well, you are partially to blame. And I said, excuse me? How is that possible? If I'm driving, I'm passing the guy, I've got my lights on, and then he goes and jumps into my lane without looking back, without checking that there's nobody coming. He causes a dangerous situation. I was not. And then I am going to get partial blame if I would have hit him. And they said, well, you were traveling at a speed of over 130, which is an inherent risk. And the inherent risk makes you responsible in case there is an accident, you will get partial blame. So it's hypocrisy. You can't tell somebody, well, you can drive as fast as you want to, but if something happens, then you are to blame, or at least you get partial blame. And that for me is not honest. That's really, really a very, very, very strange law. It's dishonest in my eyes. Anyway, we're not here to talk about German Autobahn laws.
But it's like
What
you can shoot, but if you shoot and kill somebody, you are to blame for it.
If I shoot and kill somebody, I am to, yes, of course. But if I'm not shooting, why should I still be blamed for it?
No, I mean it's like a law that says you are allowed to shoot, but if you shoot and you kill somebody, you will be blamed for it.
No, not even kill somebody. This is the whole point. You're allowed to shoot, but if you do, you will bear the consequences. This is the funny thing. It's not that I'm doing anything wrong. I'm just driving. And if somebody else causes an accident, I will automatically get part of the blame. This is the funny story. I'm not really doing anything wrong. I'm not really damaging anybody. The other guy is doing something wrong, and I have to take the blame for it. And this is this goes against my... Anyway, let's talk about stunt doubles. because I think this is quite funny that the guy in Boko Haram, the leader, and I forgot his name now. I'm so angry with myself again with these stupid headphones that I don't see that you were talking, that I forgot his name. Anyway, then he needs a negotiator. So they went, and even though he was incredibly careful about everything, he was demoted. So the head of the Boko Haram in Nigeria was demoted from internal sources. They say, okay, no, we need a negotiator and we don't need this trigger-happy guy. So they chucked him out, or whatever it is that terrorists do to each other. I don't know if they immediately kill somebody, I don't know. But he hasn't been seen for a couple of months, so it looks like there might be some merit to the story. Okay, then let's talk about sex slaves a bit. If I go and read what the New York Times says, what Daesh is doing with sexual slavery, where they glorify this and they utilize it as you know, raping female captives as a military weapon, as a weapon of war. This is, it's so amazingly sad. I cannot, I don't know, for me as a human being, I look at this and I think, come on, these are animals. This is not what a human being does, let alone in the 21st century. No human being should own or rape another. That's it, finished, class. I mean, we don't need to talk about it. And yet, this is exactly what Daesh is doing. And the rape of captives is encouraged in the Hadith. I don't see it in the Quran, but like I said earlier, it is in the Hadith. The Quran allows, you know, sex slaves for men. It condones it, but doesn't encourage it. But according to a woman, Kalimachi, she went into Syria and Iraq, and she interviewed Yazidi girls which ran away. And I mean, these are girls in their early teens. They're like 11, 12, 13 years old. So they get tied down, and then a hero, a warrior, a Daesh fighter, the slave of Allah, he walks in, gets down on his knees and prays. Now, after he's finished praying, he gets out his dick and then he rapes them. And then he goes and prays again, much to the delight of his Allah. And he says this brings him closer to his God. And this is something where I said, no, come on, this cannot be. And there I think, well, maybe we should go and intervene if this is happening, because this is clearly you know, we have a Vienna Convention, we have, well, this is for war crimes, but we still have human rights. And this is, I mean, this is so sick, it's absolutely amazing. And then stories, you know, it makes me cry and I get emotional, and then it brings me back to my plea for Muslims to please, pretty please, take ownership of your ideology. That's it. You need to get this shit out of the Quran and out of all the religious doctrine. I mean, Sharia is dead. Come on, we've got laws. We don't need another legal system. We're quite happy with the laws that we have, even though sometimes they're horrible and bad and inefficient and ineffective laws, but we don't need Sharia. And Muslims need to need to accept the laws of the 21st century and leave the Sharia, you know, somewhere else. And they need to stop this obsession with ancient Arabic. They need to go and take responsibility. They need to stop importing imams who only speak Arabic, where nobody really knows what it is that they are preaching. And this needs to come into full view, away from conspiracies and this cloak and dagger behavior. And this is something that I would want to see, that Muslims go and take ownership and then shut this stupid action down and show people, no, what Daesh is doing is wrong. They need to eradicate this. But only Muslims can do it. I can't do it for them. I can only show Muslims, look, this is what it says in the Hadith. In the Hadith it says, Muhammad said, enjoy the rape of female captives. What is Daesh doing? They're enjoying the rape of female captives. So they're doing exactly what Muhammad said that they should do. Now, what are you going to do? So unless Muslims take ownership and they say, okay, this is now no longer part of Islam. This is not what my God would want me to do. But they all need to do it. And you can't have some people saying, yeah, but the old texts say this and the new texts say something different. They need to change the mindset. And unless that happens, well, I don't know. This is
What is
strange.
interesting in this news is in the German news they have numbers. So 30 to 40 30 to 40 year old women are like 75 US dollar and worth, and young girl from
You're joking.
from 1 to 9 they are $172 worth. That's interesting. And the other thing is some girls or women are sold multiple times to like 6 men. That's also quite interesting. That they are be sold
Shit.
multiple times to many men. I think. Just as a side note.
Yeah, just to to add insult to injury. I mean, is this crazy? I mean, how else can anyone stop this? Do you think that I mean, do you think that the only people who can stop this are Muslims, or do you think there's any other way of stopping this?
Well, Muslims, I mean, no. If you really want to stop everything that happened, is you probably have to bomb the whole country to just eliminate every single Daesh guy.
Yeah, but then you have the next guy. No.
You have the next guy
The
then.
point is that Muslims actually go with the caliphate. They think this al-Baghdadi actually has a point. This is the problem, that they think that al-Baghdadi is representing Islam in a positive way. If he would stop all this rape, and if he would just stop this a little bit and calm down a bit, then everything would be okay. This is the problem.
I think the most power in eliminate the whole mess in the Near East is that the Muslims take some action themselves. Yes, but how they should establish that, I don't know, because I mean al-Baghdadi has a point. He is in war for Allah, and any scholar, even in Germany, in the US, in the UK, in Italy, in Georgia, doesn't matter where, any scholar who knows how Islam came about in the beginning, they know how it was established. They know that slaves are okay in war.
Well, it was exactly like that.
And I don't see how they should how they can go against this kind of teaching, because they exactly know that al-Baghdadi has a point in, let's say, Islamic history has already happened, and they just Daesh just re-rolls the same cases, but in the 21st century. So yeah, I mean, some have tried with the lying letters about Daesh that this and that is not allowed in Islam, etc., and that never happens, and this is not allowed.
No, that doesn't work.
You remember quite good, I think, this letter, but
Yeah.
this letter is nonsense, because
The 25 points.
yeah, exactly. This letter is nonsense because if you go to these points and you look about it, it's I think 2 points are okay and valid that they have. All others are like non-existing
Naughty. Yeah, and it's naughty. It's not. Listen, you need to cease to do that. Cease and desist. No. They just say no. But if it's like this, then it's not really our Islam, and blah blah blah. No, you can't do that. You need to say stop it. You need to take it out of the hadiths. You need to modify this. You need to say, yes, that was the understanding, and when Islam was started, today these things fall away, and everybody needs to do that. That's the only way that I can see it. Otherwise, this is going to continue forever and ever. And Muslims are being told they need to tolerate this. And Muslims are told, and this is the problem, that Muslims are not taught how to think, but what to think. And this is the problem. And then you have people like Sources who then go and say, well, actually, there is some merit to this, because Muslims should be able to decide for themselves how they want to live. And that's it. And then a lot of Muslims, primitive, uneducated Muslims, will agree with this. And this is where the problem comes. Okay, but I don't know. I see this as an internal problem at the moment still. I don't think that you can throw bombs on Iraq to solve the problems. I don't think bombing solves all problems. The US thinks bombing solves all these problems. I don't think so. Because if you throw bombs on Islam, on Syria and on Iraq, on the Levant, what is going to happen? I mean, if he dies, if Baghdadi would die now, this was the worst that could happen, because he would die as a martyr. And then more Muslims would be radicalized. And then more Muslims will go. And then what happens if then they decide to do the same thing in Australia? If they then decide to do the same thing somewhere else? Nothing's going to stop them. Look at Boko Haram. They're doing the same thing in Nigeria. Can anyone stop them then? No. So, no. Needs to be internally solved. And this is exactly the same thing in the next topic, which I call marketing jihad. Now, anyone vaguely familiar with Islam will have come into contact with the term jihad, the struggle. And just as Hitler's My Struggle was used, this Mein Kampf is the same thing. It's my struggle, my fight, my whatever. And he was using the same word, and it can mean the very same thing. It's a spiritual struggle, hence a vague and ambiguous word. Now, the FBI ran a campaign a few years back when they put faces of terrorists on walls and offered up to $25 million reward for the capturing of some terrorists, some jihadis. They call them jihadis. So nothing special so far, except Pamela Geller, who is an anti-Islam activist. She has some foundation and I don't know. She took that very same identical FBI poster, just changed the color from blue to red, and designed a bus advertising campaign with it. Oh boy, and now what? Well, it was prohibited because it was misrepresented. It was lies, misconception, and all hell broke loose now because Muslims might be offended. Why? Well, because Muslims are stereotyped. Why? It does not even mention Muslims. Why would Muslims feel threatened if they themselves constantly preach peace and tolerance and avoid hate and debate and, all that jazz? So why would Muslims protect terrorists labeled as jihadis? I mean, why don't they clean the hadiths first and make Islam a serious and acceptable religion? Why accept this 1,000-year-old violence and brutality dogma? And why would a city council act in it's called prior restraint and protect the poor victimized Muslims? This is bizarre. It's absurd. Somebody wants to do a campaign using an FBI person. They say, no, poor Muslims, they might be, they might be offended and things like that. This is so weird.
Do you mean like this campaign here?
Do you have a photo of this or what?
Yes, it's well. You see it in one. If you have opened one.
I have Vaughan open. I don't see it in the Hangout, and I can't see it in Vaughan because Vaughan doesn't do anything for me. I don't know how to get Vaughan working. I can only see others, but as soon as I'm there, I can't see anything. Okay, so if others can see it, so I can't comment if this is the one or not. It's supposed to be a bus, and then there's like 20 photos of some jihadis, and they are called terrorists or something.
Well, here, defeat jihad. It's the hashtag maybe. And yesterday's moderator, yes, today's headline, blah blah blah, and there shows a singer at the beginning, and later he is an executor. something like that.
Okay, I can't comment because I can't see it. I just saw the news everywhere where everybody's picking this up and making fun of this, that a city will actually go and pander to the poor victimized Muslims, where Muslims are not even mentioned here. You know, this is an ad against terrorism, and people automatically think, oh, there must be Muslims. This is where we are today.
But are you
Anyway.
defending now Pamela Geller? Is that right?
I am now defending Pamela Geller because I think that she should be allowed to fund a campaign which says, don't go and allow terrorism. Because she is not doing anything negative. She is not stereotyping Muslims. She is not saying Muslims are bad. No, she is very, very, let's say, open and saying, no, I'm just saying, you know, don't allow terrorism. And that is all or maybe I'm being an idiot here, but I don't see this.
Okay, go on.
Or do you see something bad here?
No, in general, I think it should be allowed, and especially if she really, I don't know the campaign, but if she really is against terrorism and shows no and says no to this terrorism, and then some Muslims come along and say, no, you are not allowed. I think that's a really stupid thing to say. You are not allowed to go against terrorism. And even stupider is, legally people are from the states are trying to silence her and say, no, you are not allowed to be against terrorism. I think that's really stupid, yes.
This is why I think, no, come on, because she doesn't mention Muslim. Of course, come on, let's be honest, okay? Of course she is. Of course she is saying stop terrorism, and 99% of all terrorism today is being committed by Muslims. But she's not saying it. She's implying it. And if Muslims see this and say, well, okay, yes, it's us. 99% of all terrorists are coming from us. And this is our doing, this is our religion, this is our ideology, this is our dogma, our doctrine, and this is why you're not allowed to talk about it. Absolutely, this is exactly what is happening. But this, for me, is a declaration of bankruptcy, because what Muslims are saying, and what the city government, what the city, what are they called? Anyway, the administration, municipality, there you go. What the municipality is doing is saying, well, maybe we are the ones who are saying that anybody who looks like a terrorist is probably a Muslim. This is the worst part of it. So we can see that there's hypocrisy all the way around, on all 15 different sides that there are in the story. So I think this is quite funny how it exposes all this. And it's racist, exactly. This is always the biggest joke, that Muslims then come and say, oh, you're a racist if you say something against Islam. Anyway, but this brings us to the topic which I just chose today, which is, once again, hadiths. Now, what I would like to do, because hadiths are still being modified, updated, and that again, so what I want to do is I want to see if I can shed some light on the entire process, on the entire concept of what hadiths are, okay?
But first, first we hear Ali, or not?
And I would, yeah, exactly. This is and to kick this off, I thought let me start with the hadith of the week a little bit early and show our friend Ali, who is going to recite for us a hadith on the cloak, the magic cloak.
Okay, I will play it.
Abu Huraira records, I said to Allah's Apostle, I hear many narrations, many hadiths from you, but I forget them. And Allah's Apostle said, spread your garment. And I did accordingly. And then he moved his hands as if filling them with something. And then he emptied them in my garment and said, take and wrap this sheet over your body. I did it, and after that I never forgot anything.
Okay, so this is a hadith. Okay, now what happens is that it was collected by Bukhari, and he wrote 8 books, and there's thousands of them. Now, what a hadith is that somebody narrates something that he saw either Muhammad do, say, or whatever, and then what happens is you have two parts of a hadith. One is the contents as such, which is I hear many narrations from you, but I forget them, and then the whole story. And these vary in length. Sometimes they're just a single sentence, and sometimes they're an entire story. I mean, the longest one, I think, is the one about Muhammad, how he gets his heart washed and blah, blah, blah. And then he gets on his flying donkey mule, flies to Jerusalem, ties it up there, goes inside to pray, then goes up to the various levels of heaven, and only to haggle with God about the number of prayers. I think this is the longest hadith. So they can vary in length from one sentence to an entire book. And the second part is the chain of narration, the so-called isnad. What this means is that there was somebody who was next to Muhammad. This could have been his I don't know, his brother, his uncle, his hairdresser, his I don't know what, who heard him say, or let's say take this one, who saw him take something into the garment, empty it, prepare, pretend as though he was emptying something, and then the guy says, "Well, from this day I never forgot anything." So somebody either experienced this, or heard this, or saw this, or something. Now that person will tell their son, or their hairdresser, or their uncle, or their niece, or granddaughter, or whatever, this story, word for word. And then that person will remember this word for word and pass it on to their son, daughter, hairdresser, or whatever. Then that person, word for word, will remember this and then pass it on to their sons, daughters, nieces, aunts, hairdressers, or whatever. And then this person will then pass, you get the picture. And this all the way for 300 years. So this is like somebody coming to me now and saying, I know exactly that Napoleon said, if you go to the toilet, you must enter with your left leg first. And this is how stupid this is. This is what you need to believe, that this is what Napoleon said. And this is the concept of a hadith. Right? This is how hadith work. So a hadith is it's called the sunnah, and it's the secondary the secondary text of the second authority in Islam. The number one authority is the Quran, which is supposed to be from God. Then you have the 1A, which is the Qudsi hadith, which I explained the last time. And then you have the hadith proper. And these are thousands and thousands and thousands of sayings. Then somebody found out that, well, there were some sayings which were manipulated. So they were deleted again. So out of the thousands and thousands and hundreds and millions of these hadiths, they had to sort of prune them. And they deleted some where they said, well, these are not so correct. And I mean, according to what criteria, nobody knows. They say, well, either the isnad was broken, in other words, there was not a chain of narration which reached all the way back to the Prophet, or there was something, this was not like the Prophet would have said it, so we deleted it. So yeah, it was a lot of manipulation. Anyway, so they brought it down so that today we roughly have something like 22, 25, maybe even 30,000. Nobody really knows because it varies. It depends on who you take. So you have the approved traditions, which are the acts or deeds that were performed in the presence or by the Prophet. And there is a subcategory of oral statement. Shit, this is my phone.
Everybody on their knees, please.
He's telling me that I should go for prayer. It's Azan for Isha. It's Azan for Isha prayer. It's the Isha prayer. So I need to stop the show now. I need to go pray. And where was I now? I forgot that I switched this on. So made by the companions of the Prophet. So this is the secondary category, the second category of the extra. So you have the Quran, you have the Qudsi hadith, which are actually from Allah but didn't make it into the Quran. And then you have the hadiths, which are all about the Prophet and them. So the funny thing is, after you look at the components, in other words, the chain of narration, you will see that like 80% of the hadiths come from 6 people. Where Abu Huraira is the most active, where something like 5,500 come from him alone. And it's quite funny that everybody should say that Abu Huraira was the one who said, this is what the Prophet did. Now, I mean, how can a person, you know, like get exactly word for word all the precise meaning and all the words of what Napoleon said today, 300 years later? It doesn't work, and yet this is something that Muslims expect you to believe, and this is where, for example, Tzortzis goes and says, this is testimony, and we should include the testimony of Muhammad in the revelation. In other words, add it to the primary narration, the primary text, the highest authority, so that the hadiths have the same authority as the Quran. Now, then it enables them to prove or say anything they want, because the hadiths, thousands of them, there are so many that you can prove anything and anything. And it's anyway. So what they say is Muhammad is a great guy, he's just, he's honest, he's righteous, and therefore all these sayings are correct. Except he also says, no, kill women and children. And then Muslims say, well, he never harmed a tree. Well, there's a hadith that says, no, don't worry about the trees, cut down the trees. Well, they say, well, he's... No, you have a contradicting hadith for almost anything that you want. And this is why they're so useless. For everything that you can, you know, glean from them, you can get the opposite. Now, the way that the hadiths work is they have different classifications. In other words, they are given different levels of authenticity. So you have the highest authenticity, which is the Quran, which is the highest authority. Then you have the Qudsi, then you have the Hadith, and then within the Hadith you have a different classification system. The Quran does not have that. They have tried doing that. You have these different yus or kus or something, which is just different elements, different sections of the Quran. Then what they have is you have the so-called Mecca and the Medina verses, where somebody said, well, this sounds good, so it must be Mecca. This one is more harsh, so it must be Medina. And they are arbitrary classifications. Then you have a chronological, because the Quran has no structure, no order or anything. They come and they say, well, let's give it some chronology and say, well, I think that this one was revealed on this and this day at this and this time. And then this one builds on that, so it must have been later. So they just go and put in a classification of their own there. But in the hadith, it's a little bit different. So they start with weak. In other words, they call this daif. And this is a narration which is not really accurate enough to be classified as sound or fair or something, and cannot really be used as a basis. And you have different subcategories of these weak hadiths, which you can't use anyway. So I don't know why you would, reclassify them if you can't use them, because they are so weak in and of themselves. Then you have the majhul, the unknown. In other words, somebody came with something, but it sounds nice. So one of the narrators is unknown, or there is no there's no story about him, nobody knows him, you don't really know when he lived, and blah, blah, blah. It's so on that no compiler of the hadith has passed a judgment about this narrator. Because what a hadith looks like is, apart from the contents, you then have a list of people with their birth dates and their relationships with each other, which nobody could verify. I mean, they're just made up. You had an entire, they actually called them hadith factories. So you had madrasas, the religious schools, who said, well, we need to come up with something which the Prophet said, which is nice, so they just fabricated it. And they came with all the names, they just copied them. And I think this is why Abu Huraira has so many, because they just copied what he said, just took all the list from all his children, grandchildren, and all the other people, and then just attributed something to him. Then you have strange hadith, which is the narration sounds unfamiliar or is not reported by others, because you also have substantiating and you have hadiths coming from different threads by different people, which is then taken as corroborating evidence that these are actually sound. So, but you have strange ones which don't fall into that category. Then you have faulty or perplexing, which is muadal, which is that misses two or more consecutive narrators. Then you have disconnected. Then you have just some people who don't really make sense or undone or something, and then or if the text begins once upon a time or as we used to do or something, then it's taken as disconnected. Then you have broken, which is similar to the other ones before, but it has a different wording. Then you have the confounding. Then there is a disagreement, because even though you can have hadith which are considered to be sound and good and sahih and authentic and everything, there are still, this is what I was talking about, that if you have Muhammad telling people about his, that they should rape people, then you can have the disconsent amongst the scholars, and then they can disagree about the different hadiths and then demote them. Then you have the stopped one, which is a narration which is related without any kind of companion of the Prophet. So this is just then fabricated, but if it sounds nice, they will still keep it. Then it is faulty, which it doesn't even quote the Prophet directly, and blah, blah, blah. Then it's hurried, which is mursal, the chain between the first narrator and the Prophet is missing. So, and for example, where the Prophet said, or I saw the Prophet do exactly with this garment, this magic garment. I saw the Prophet take something or pretend he was taking something, and then it was something that made me never again forget something. Then it's denounced, it's interpolated, and then some are even fabricated, and they agree. And so they will admit, yes, this is a forged, this is a fabricated hadith. So you do get them. Then you have the supported ones, which concurs with one another. Then they are Hasan, which is fair, which means they are reliable, but not as 100% sound. So yes, it sounds good, but don't go and base your life on this. Then you have the connected, which goes up, then it's traceable, which means that you find all the people, and theoretically it could go all the way to the Prophet. And then you have the sahih, the authentic, the sound one, narration with an unbroken chain of narrators. Narrators are regarded as reliable, and the whole tutti corroborating ones, and blah, blah, blah. So all in all, you have 18 classifications of hadith. So if somebody says, okay, the Prophet pretended to take something, put it into my garment, and from that day on I had the magic memory. Now, there are others. There are things like the Prophet said that if a fly falls into your drink, you must dip it because one wing contains a poison and the other one contains an antidote to heal you again. Now, what does that tell you? It doesn't tell you that this is real. It just says that this is a superstition. It just tells you that this is what people believed at that time. But it still doesn't say that it's true. It doesn't say that it's possible. It doesn't say anything about it. It just said this is a story. This is why I give them the same credibility as I would to the seven dwarfs.
Stop spamming. This story about the fly, this is true because it was tested by Islamic biologists, and it's real. It works, of course.
It's a scientific experiment. The same with the story with the honey. That honey cures everything.
Didn't you know that the fly cures everything?
Yes. So, yeah, I've seen these reports. I think this is from Amman. This is a university group from Amman who did this, who ran this test.
And there's a very famous YouTube video, if you search about this hadith, of a guy who explains how it works, this cure. And the same guy explains also on basis of another hadith that girls' urine is more unclean than the boys' urine. So that's also very hilarious. And also,
What would Zakir Naik say? As we have come to know recently.
but what I really wanted to show was if people want to know about how hadiths were fabricated, just read Muslim Studies by Ignaz Goldziher. He has written 2 volumes of these studies, and he explains very good how this was fabricated and how just some texts from the Bible even were taken out of the Bible and just let's say took an Arabic touch and just arranged some words, just some little words, but the meaning still stays the same. It's a very fascinating book, I think. And Goldziher also said, like, in general, you can't take any hadith serious because we know that these madrasas these madras schools existed, and we don't know if any hadith at all really came from the 7th century anyway. So he makes it quite clear why it didn't seem to be at all any authentic work.
Yeah, but this is still okay. I mean, you can laugh about this, but there are others which are criminally wrong. I mean, if you go and you write a specific sentence onto your shirt, and then you go out and you stand in the way of a bullet because it tells you are protected against everything, you die. Just because you believe that Muhammad said that if you write this on your shirt, then you are protected. You're not. And I think a lot of people in Syria and in Iraq are like really surprised because they get up in the morning, they eat the magic dates, then they go and write this on their shirt, and they go out and then they get shot. And then they will look and say, yeah, but hang on, I ate the dates, I put everything on my shirt, how come I'm dying? And then, well, it's...
Let's take the story about Muhammad himself. I mean, he was poisoned, right?
Exactly.
At least you can read this in the biography and some hadiths. Maybe he have ate every day 7 dates, but and after 2 years there weren't any dates anymore, and therefore he had to die. Couldn't that be an explanation?
Yeah. And some of them are really, really stupid. I mean, it's amazing what you actually read in the hadith. I mean, and that Muslims even mention them and are not embarrassed and just go and say, no, ignore the hadith, let's just go for the Quran. I mean, the Quran is bad enough. I mean, how many animals Muhammad speaks with, and what you hear there, and drinking camel urine is like medicine and things like that. I mean, come on, please. We're in the 21st century. We don't need shit like that. And why isn't it embarrassing for people? Why would somebody like Zoltus go and say, no, this is like Revelation. We need to give this the same level of authenticity as the Quran. We need to integrate this into Revelation. I can't believe it. I think maybe I should go and read some Bukhari and get some examples and show what it is that they're really saying. I don't know, it's quite weird. Anyway, there are 6 different levels, okay? So, but now you need to appreciate that there are PhD Islam scholars, okay? You get a PhD in Islam. If you know some of the Quran and you know some hadith, then you get a PhD. Then you can call yourself like Shabir. I mean, this is Shabir Ali. I mean, he's such an idiot. And he's got a PhD. And Dr. Yasir Qadi. I mean, he doesn't know shit, and he's got a PhD in Islam. Anyway, now we have 6 authentic collections of hadith. All right. Now, what they call authentic, okay, they change all the time, but according to the to the different levels, they are being classified as hadith at the moment. And these collections are Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Nasai, Abu Dawood. And then we've already got a problem, because Muslims can't agree whether Ibn Majah or the Muwatta is actually or to be considered authentic. They don't know. So the way that it works is the ones which are being taken and accepted by each and every Sunni Muslim is Al-Bukhari and Al-Sahih Muslim. Tirmidhi is already, we don't know, yeah, that's fine. Abu Dawood, well, you don't know. And the sixth one, I don't know. It's so weird. Instead of saying, okay, look, we've got this, we've taken 6, and these are the ones that are authentic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, even here, they can't decide. Even here, there's a disagreement. Even here, you need interpretation. So they found some defective narrations in the Ibn Majah collection, so they're thinking maybe we should drop it and put Muwatta in there. And then what I'm always asked, yes, the Shias have this a very similar system. They just call them later. They call them different, and they were compiled even later than the Sunni ones. And here we're talking 300 years. Okay, the Muwatta is a little bit earlier, but in general, I'm taking the Hadith as being compiled as 300 years after Islam was first, it started off after the kickoff. That's strange. I don't know why people believe this. If you go to the Hadiths and you see that Muhammad took his burak, the flying mule, flew to Jerusalem, tied burak, the mule, outside the mosque, went inside, prayed, then came out, and then went up to the different levels of heaven with Jibril, with Gabriel. The mosque didn't exist at the time when Muhammad was supposed to have existed. It was only built, well, depending on which one you take, because the dome was built in 692, I believe, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque was only built in 721. So we're talking like decades and even a century after Muhammad. So I don't understand how the hadiths which say that he went there can be true. But if you consider that they were written 300 years afterwards, then it makes sense, because then all these buildings already existed, and then they can make up a story about Muhammad flying to Jerusalem and parking it outside Al-Aqsa Mosque, because then 300 years later, Al-Aqsa already existed. But they didn't go back and check whether it existed 300 years ago when Muhammad existed. This is what they didn't do. The same thing happened with Jesus. I mean, they made up Jesus, and they say, well, he went to Nazareth, without checking whether Nazareth actually existed. And today we know Nazareth did not exist. The same problem we have with Mecca. They said, well, Mecca has always been there, and Mecca has already been mentioned. No, it hasn't. It doesn't exist. The first time that it's mentioned is like 300-400 years into our time reckoning. So it doesn't really make sense. So if you take the hadiths as having any meaning, then it's a matter of deciding what it is that how you want to go and interpret them, because as such they don't make sense. Okay, then did I say that they contradict each other? Like they say Muhammad washed himself 2 times, and then the next one says Muhammad washed himself 3 times. So you never really know what it is that they're talking about, and which one to believe and which one to follow, and which one is going to get you in serious trouble with your God. I mean, you need to imagine, I mean, everything needs to be seen in the context of this God, because this is the God telling you, you need to do this. He doesn't say this in the Quran, he says this in the Hadith. So if you make a mistake, this is your mistake, and then what happens? Then you're going to end up in hell.
About
because you didn't
contradictions,
take the right one.
about contradiction, there is a hadith about a guy who is blind on one eye, and it's in I don't know it's in Sahih Muslim or Sahih Bukhari, but it's in one of them that I know, and they are right. One is written after the other, And in one you see the guy is blinded on the left eye, and the next one talks he is blind on the right eye. So it's also, I mean, people, I don't understand how a Muslim can take this serious. If he sees two hadiths after another, and how does such a human being explain such thing? I mean, either both are wrong or just one can be right. I mean, it doesn't work that both can be authentic or be right at all. So then you have to question the whole collections in general. That's so pathetic. I think if you put both hadith on the same page, that's so wrong, I think. And the second thing I also want to mention, because you said Sunnis all accept Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim for sure, and that's not true, because I had the discussion on the German show under a video, and I mean I take always this example about Aisha and how 53 or 54-year-old guy could have sex with a 9-year-old, and he explained it then to me. Well, that hadith doesn't belong to Sahih Bukhari, and it is wrong because today's scholars have decided that it's not right, and that can't be authentic hadith. I mean, how they today decide because some hadith doesn't sound nice and very very cute for the best human being ever. They don't say, or such a guy don't say like in the comments, but he just explained the scholars today have decided to be this not authentic anymore. But I'm pretty sure, I'm 100% sure that this is still in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim in the general collection. Just alone because in Yemen mostly I think it's quite common to marry still such young girls and to have sex. And
I heard this too.
And it, I think every year die some girls that because some old pervert motherfucker, let's call him that, rapes a little girl, and they rape them really apart, you can say, and they are
well, a girl died a couple of months ago.
Like I said, every year girls die, that because of, and Muslim scholars say, well, we can't do anything because it's in the Sahih Bukhari, and therefore it's all right.
Well, like I said, this all you have today are the references. You have a reference to a fatwa which says, well, Muhammad had control over his penis and he was more in control than any other person on this planet. This is why he was allowed to rub his penis through the thighs of a young girl. You can't find it anymore. You can make the claim, and then if you say, well, here it is, well, it's disappeared. So all you find nowadays are the references to fatwa number blah, 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 blah. And then this one says, well, this is, it was reported that Muhammad blah, 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 blah. It's gone. It has been eradicated. It doesn't exist anymore. And the same thing I think you can do with others. So do away with these things. Stop telling people that it's okay to rape girls. Tell them it's okay to rape women. No, do away with these things. Anyway, and then what the hadith are supposed to do, they are supposed to explain the wishes of the God, which he doesn't manage in the Quran. So if you have something in the Quran, what is supposed to happen is that you should have the clarification in the form of hadith. But sometimes you have exactly the opposite. You have something that is in the hadith which is not in the Quran. So you have hadiths which are contradicting what is in the Quran. I always bring this example with alcohol. The Quran doesn't mention alcohol and doesn't mention that you need to stop drinking it. It doesn't say that women should cover their hair. It doesn't mention all of these things. But the hadiths do. And this is why it becomes part of Islam. And this is why then people say, well, this is what God actually wanted because they put it into authentic hadiths. But what I'm trying to show here is not exactly what the hadiths are saying. Like we had last time, there is no, there is no punishment for somebody who has sex with an animal. Come on. I mean, how can you have that in a religious text? That's ludicrous. Anyway, so you're supposed to have something in the hadiths which explains the Quran. Because now, for example, in 940 something, you have the guy who, what I just mentioned. He couldn't go and fight because he was on the one eye and blah, blah, blah. So you're supposed to have an explanation of why it is that people who can't fight are actually the worst people, but if they can't fight, then it's okay. Because if you don't want to fight, it's different. So if you don't want to fight, you need to fight, but if you can't, well, then it's not your fault, because if you're blind or something, then it's not your duty to fight others. But the problem is, how can he know this? How can Muhammad know in future what happens to somebody or why it happens to somebody? He can't, but it's being applied as such to people today, and it doesn't work. So Muhammad could only react to what people in his immediate vicinity said, did, or whatever. This is what he could react to. So if somebody 1,000 kilometers did something, he would never know. And this is the problem that we see today, that the world of Islam is a flat earth and limited to the Arabian Peninsula. Because you can't fast, above the Nordic Circle, where there is no sunset for 3 months and you can't eat for 3 months. So it doesn't make sense. So the hadiths also do not make sense because they're all geared towards the immediate vicinity of Muhammad. So you can't do anything that in anything that is outside of the immediate environment of Muhammad or of the people who wrote the hadiths. And this is quite funny because they are bound by the limitations of the knowledge that they have at the time in that region, because they didn't know anything about Australia or America or anything like that. They didn't know about Norway, so they couldn't, compensate for it. So then we have the thing. You have hadiths which relate to behavior, but what they need to always take into consideration is you have the Quran, which says that men are a degree above the women. Now, how do you then go and make this work in the hadith? When you have sex slaves, you have all sorts of things, how do you make this look positive? And you have things like, well, the Prophet's houses. I mean, he had 14 wives or something according to the hadiths. And in all the houses, the chimneys were not on, which meant they were not cooking because they were so poor that they did not have anything to cook. And that's how modest and frugal Muhammad was. And this is the kind of nonsense that they say. And then they say, well, he went and plundered caravans, entire settlements. He owned palm orchards. He went and stole this and looted this and unbelievable. And then he said he took more and more portions of the plunder for himself and for God, for example, because in the Quran it says 1/5 of everything goes to God. But because God can't collect it, Muhammad collected it for God so that he would put it to good use for God again. And this is what we're talking about. This is what we're confronted with.
How many hadiths do you know
Okay,
about?
any comments on?
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe you know the answer to it. I mean, the hadiths should also be somehow prophetic and contain somehow prophetic prophecy in it, or not?
Okay, there are people who say yes, there is, but there isn't.
And the thing is, what does a collection of hadith say about nuclear waste? Let's say. I mean, this is a very important question in today's time.
It
no?
is.
And what
And the
does,
responsible handling of stem cell research, yes.
what do hadiths say about things like that, or the Quran? But let's
Nothing.
be at the hadiths. Let's stay there.
Nothing.
No,
No, there's nothing like that. There are people. I mean, what did Muhammad actually do in the form of prophecy? Nothing. What did he actually do in the form of miracles? Nothing. When people come up, yeah, but there's this thing that indirectly he was responsible for the splitting of the moon. So you can attribute that to Muhammad. Then they say, well, in the hadith there's it's actually a weak one, and it's probably it was invented, fabricated, or whatever, but let's take it anyway, where he had water coming out of his hands so that his companions could drink water in the desert. That's it. That's all that I am aware of. I do not know of any other miracles that could be attributed to Muhammad. The only the prophecy that he makes, which I don't think is a prophecy, is when he says the Romans will be defeated. And excuse me, that is not a prophecy. It's like, I think it will rain in London sometime next week. I mean, wow.
the U.S. will be defeated. That's my prophecy, and the UK will be defeated, and France will be defeated. Well, okay, France is not. It's not hard to defeat them, but anyway.
And the prophecy, this is the funny thing, the prophecy is not that it will happen on this and this day. No. They have created a word which means within the next 4 to 9 years. And then they look in history, when did this happen? In the lifetime of the prophet. And then they say, well, this was a prophecy. How can it be a prophecy if it happened while he was still alive? Well, no, it was revealed before he died and before it happened. How do you know that? Well, we just know.
But in case in the Romans, it's not even true, because the Byzantine Empire is the East Roman. So, and this lasted like till the 15th century at all.
Yeah, but there was a battle when the Mongols came and defeated them.
Yeah, they took
In
many land
Jerusalem.
of them, but
It doesn't say this, but
they didn't
and
defeat
in the
anyway.
lower land, I mean, it doesn't say lower land. It doesn't say lowest land. It says in the nearest land. And then from the nearest, you get to the lower lands. And then from the lower, you get to the lowest land. And from the lowest land, you find there is like 100 kilometers between the lowest land and the where the battle was. So if for a god, plus minus 100 kilometers, well, you're not allowed to have sex, plus minus 10 years or something.
But in case of a hadith who talks about miracles, there is one in Sahih Bukhari which tells that Muhammad was wandering with a group, and there was a little child, and this child was very thirsty, and to take away this thirst, he like spit it in his mouth, and after this spit, the child wasn't thirsty the whole journey anymore.
Really? I don't know this one.
It was just a short version, but in general, it's like he spit it in his mouth, and therefore a miracle, because the child wasn't thirsty the whole journey anymore.
Well, if he rubs his hand on a magic garment, on a garment, it becomes a magic garment, you can also say that's a miracle.
And what exactly did he put in the garment? I mean,
Nothing.
No, but nothing.
Nothing.
Can't
From
be.
nothing, nothing comes, except if Muhammad does it.
But why didn't God already pour it into the garment? Why he poured it beside the garment, and Muhammad had to take it with his hand? That's quite strange.
Okay, now you're being rational. This doesn't work here. No, it's. I don't know what to say to this. I mean, I don't even know if there's a collection on the internet of crazy hadiths. I need to look for this, because there are really so many really crazy ones. It's frightening. And people go and say, well, yeah, you need to take this seriously. How can you take this seriously? You can't. Okay, I don't know if Alassa was here today, and I wonder whether he is wondering what happened to the hadith of the day. One more water, no thanks, gag. Exactly.
Well, you can say just crazy hadith and you get many sites, so...
Really, I need to look at this.
Just put in crazy hadiths and you get many sites.
Okay, I've never tried that. I need to try that and see what comes up. Okay, so this was what I quickly wanted to clarify on the hadiths, that there are different classifications and how they work and what the contents of the hadiths are, because I think the last time we never got around to doing this. So we just talked about the kinds and types of hadiths, but not the internal workings. So there you go. Any questions, any comments on hadiths or anything like that? Watch Fox News and acclimatize to say we are. I mean, I attribute the same authenticity to hadiths as I do to Cinderella and Little Red Riding Hood. Really, I mean, it's, and that's it. So if anybody has an authentic hadith which you think it should be authentic and which actually, I mean, I always say to people, I say to people, give me something that is true in the Quran. Anything that is true. Anything that is verifiably true, that you can compare to reality and you come to the same result. And like offhand, I can't think of anything. And I think the same is true for the hadiths. I mean, there's very little in there that makes any sense, especially if you're talking about jinn and all these superstitions that you have. I mean, some of these are really brutal, especially when you go to the description of heaven and hell and what happens to people and yeah. Okay, anything that anybody wants to say? No, nothing? Then it's another short episode. So I'll love you and leave you. And I don't know what to do with the technical side here with Vaughan. I don't even know how to test it, because to test it on your own is impossible, because you need different addresses. Or maybe I can get Ike to do this with me and see if we can come to some sort of agreement here. All right, guys.
And we look just shortly. But okay.
Let's do that. So thank you very much for listening. And remember that if you want to come and chat, more than welcome, and really would be great. So if you enter live.godless.ch, you get to the Vaughan if it works, and you can just listen and comment, chatting in writing. If you want to discuss, you go into hangout.godless.ch, and if you want to see past episodes, you just go to archive.godless.ch. See you then. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.